Springfield in the dead of night, boots sinking in the mud, faces hollow from the fight. Lion pushed them hard through rain and black, knowing half his men might never make it back. Seagull took the long way through the trees to hit them from behind and bring them to their knees, while Lion drove straight into the southern line. At first light, the woods exploded into lead and fire. On the banks of Wilson's Creek, the powder burned like hell. Men were choking on the smoke as the musket balls fell. Blue coats and gray coats bleeding where they stood. No one knew who'd live and who would spill their blood. The sun was barely up, but the killing had begun. On that ridge they'd later call the Bloody One. Guns tore through the camps at dawn. Tents went up in flames as the graycoats stumbled on. For a moment it looked like the flank would break. Then McCulloch turned his men and made the bluecoats shake. They came up through the corn and through the brush, shooting low and close with no room left to rush. Lion's boys were holding, but the line began to bend as the heat rose with the bodies on the ground. Up on Bloody Hill, the air was thick with lead. Men were screaming through the smoke as their friends dropped dead. No time to reload, just steel and bayonets drawn. Bodies piling up where the grass was torn. Lion walked the line with blood already on his face, knowing this could be the last ground he would take. He took 2 wounds but still refused to yield, raised his sword and shouted as he drove them through the field. "Come on, boys!" His voice cut through the roar. Then a bullet took him down where the fighting had been sore. The men around him staggered for a breath, but they held the ridge a little longer before death. Price's columns kept on coming through the haze, while the sun beat down on the wounded where they lay. They fought for hours till the powder all ran dry. Men were shaking, men were praying, some were ready to die. Sturgis looked around at what the morning had become. Too many dead to count, and the worst still yet to come. He gave the order, and they started falling back, leaving Lion's body lying on the bloody track. The field stayed with the Southern men that day, but both sides walked away with pieces torn away. No glory in the heat and in the flies, just the sound of wounded men and the smoke that filled the skies. Some would call it victory, some would call it loss, but the cost was paid in flesh, right there upon the cross. On the banks of Wilson's Creek, the powder burned like hell. Men were choking